Franchises have always been hugely profitable in Hollywood, so it makes sense that many films are conceived as trilogies, with the first film or two setting up a payoff finally delivered by the third. But sometimes things just don't go according to plan, and audiences never get to see the story play out as intended. Other times, a successful first film inspires a sequel or two that just never comes to full fruition. For example, Tim Burton's Batman 3. After breaking box office records with 1989's Batman, director Tim Burton and star Michael Keaton returned 3 years later with Batman Returns, a movie that hinted at more adventures to come. In 1995, those adventures dutifully arrived, only now they were a neon-drenched debacle fronted by Val Kilmer, directed by Joel Schumacher, and featuring a bright green Jim Carrey chewing the scenery. What happened? Burton's trilogy was ultimately sunk by its controversial and underperforming middle part. Sure, Batman Returns received positive reviews and was a box office smash, but it didn't perform nearly as well as the first film. And it was widely criticized in the press for being too dark and violent for kids, damaging McDonald's Happy Meal sales.
Now you can get a Batman car and a McDonald's Happy Meal. There's Catwoman's Coupe, Batman's launching Batmobile, or the Penguin's Roadster. One toy with each Happy Meal you buy.
So Warner Brothers chucked Burton, Keaton left, and the final part of the trilogy was replaced by 2 ridiculous Schumacher films. What would Burton's Batman 3 have looked like? Billy D. Williams, who played Harvey Dent in the '89 Batman, was set to play Two-Face. He finally got the role in 2017's The Lego Batman Movie. Marlon Wayans was cast as Robin in Batman Returns, but he was left on the cutting room floor. Industry rumors suggested Robin Williams was meant to play the Riddler, and Michelle Pfeiffer would return as Catwoman. Would it have been any good? Well, it couldn't have been much worse than Batman and Robin.
I'll finish off the city. You kill the kids, but leave me the bat.
David Fincher's Millennium Trilogy. On paper, the Millennium Trilogy must have looked like the surest bet in showbiz.
Hollywood movies based on the mega-selling books by Swedish author Stieg Larsson? Directed by David Fincher, the genre-hopping talent behind Fight Club and Seven? Shirtless Daniel Craig?
Shut up and take my money!
The first Millennium movie, 2011's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, managed to pull in $223 million off a $90 million budget, enough to prompt talk of a sequel. There were still 2 books left unfilmed in America at the time, and a Fincher-directed and Craig-fronted Girl Who Played with Fire and Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest would surely generate a tidy profit. But Sony claims Craig wanted too much money to reprise the role of journalist Mikhail Blomkvist for 2 more films. At one point, they considered completing the trilogy with a different lead. Then they ditched Fincher too, and talk of a trilogy went out the window. Latest reports say Sony is planning a 2018 reboot with a new cast, adapting the semi-official 4th Millennium book, The Girl in the Spider's Web, written by David Lagerkrantz after Larsson's death. Chinatown. Not many people know that Roman Polanski's 1974 masterpiece Chinatown already has a sequel. In 1990,
Jack Nicholson reprised the role of grizzled PI Jake Gittes in The Two Jakes,
a sequel that failed to live up to the quality of its predecessor in just about every way.
This town, I'm the leper with the most fingers.
But had The Two Jakes been a box office hit, it would have paved the way for a full-on trilogy.
Gittes vs. Gittes would have seen Nicholson's detective taking on a monopoly controlling access to the LA freeway while also going through a messy divorce.
Unfortunately, The Two Jakes bombed so hard that screenwriter Robert Towne gave up on the idea of Part 3 altogether. Timothy Dalton's Bond Trilogy. The never-filmed third and final Timothy Dalton James Bond movie was conceived as a way of capping the actor's involvement with the franchise. It would have given Dalton's Bond a big send-off while indulging in the themes that made his previous 2 outings so distinct.
According to Charles Helfenstein's The Making of the Living Daylights,
it was known in pre-production as Bond 17 and got as far as the scripting stage. The plot involved a British-Chinese megalomaniac threatening to unleash a worldwide computer virus unless the British returned Hong Kong back to China. Bond 17 stayed on the table right up until 1994, when Dalton got tired of waiting and simply quit the role.
Then you have my resignation, sir.
We're not a country club, 007.
Bond was recast with Pierce Brosnan, and Bond 17 became GoldenEye. Perhaps it's just as well. Within 2 years of GoldenEye's release in 1997, Hong Kong was returned to China in the real world, with nary an evil megalomaniac in sight. Kick-ass.
Director Matthew Vaughn brought indie comic series Kick-Ass to life on the big screen in 2010.
With Aaron Taylor Johnson starring as the namesake hero. Praised for its adult themes, Kick-Ass received positive reviews from critics and managed to become a modest box office success, prompting Universal to move forward with a sequel. Directed by Jeff Wadlow, Kick-Ass 2 was released in August 2013 to not-so-kick-ass reviews. Although the film was a decent commercial success, it failed to perform as well as the first film. Shortly before the release of Kick-Ass 2, creator Mark Miller confirmed plans for a third movie that would largely depend on how much money the second movie made. In 2015, Vaughn said he'd have to make a Hit Girl prequel before tackling Kick-Ass 3, but don't hold your breath. Hit Girl herself, Chloe Grace Moretz, says poor box office numbers doom the trilogy, and she's, quote, done with the character. And Vaughn hasn't commented on a potential third flick since. His Dark Materials. In the wake of Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Harry Potter films, studios were scrambling to find the next big fantasy epic. New Line almost found it in His Dark Materials, a grim atheist fantasy series by British writer Philip J. Pullman that had set the literary world alight a decade earlier. It had battles, baddies, school children sprinting through spectacular set pieces. In a post-Potter world, it seemed a surefire success. And it might have been, if the first film, The Golden Compass, hadn't managed to anger just about everyone. Fans were outraged that New Line tried to water down the book's anti-religion themes, while religious organizations were outraged by the diluted leftovers of those same themes. Fox News even claimed that it was part of that year's War on Christmas, because of course it did.
Religion has been a source of peace, of serenity, of happiness, and I don't understand why militant atheists wish to take that away from kids.
It also didn't help that New Line forced the creation of a cliffhanging, gotta watch the sequel ending in an attempt to milk money right out of viewers' pockets. So it's no big surprise the film made barely $70 million at the domestic box office against its $180 million budget. The global box office added an impressive $300 million, but the damage had already been done to its reputation. The poor reviews and bad box office killed this trilogy as dead as the series' own god. Thanks for watching. Click the grunge icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.